Oh man, it's Tuesday. It just keeps becoming Tuesday. Like it just whips around here every 7 days. We got to do this again, and we get to talk to you guys. We get to say hi to Jeremy. Always one of the first ones in. But my name is Adam, in case you don't already know. This is Comic Industry Insiders Live, the weekly live show where we talk about the goings-on of the comic book industry, the things behind the scenes. We talk to some of our friends when they have stuff to talk about. We really just honestly use this opportunity sometimes just to catch up. We did have a big show planned for this week, and we had to punt it for next week because there were a couple pieces we wanted to put in place. But speaking of pieces that are always felt when they're not there, I'd like to bring to the screen my partner in crime, Mr. Brian Garside. Brian.
It's me.
How you doing,
I'm back.
You're back?
Back from my adventures in a foreign land.
In a foreign land. Well, it's foreign to me. You know.
Foreign to me, too.
You talk about where you were.
Speak a whole other language.
How much?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I was in Montreal to visit our friends at Universal Distribution and Lightspeed, which is a point of sale system. So I was hanging out with those guys, and then I went to a bunch of shops, including BD Cosmos, who's one of our managed comics stores, and I think I hit like 9 other stores. Captain Quebec, which is like this amazing. Oh man, it's like a treasure trove of amazing things. It was such a cool store. There was some good stores. At some point, I'm going to put together a slideshow of all the places I went to. But yeah, it was fun.
Good. And meetings with our friends at Universal went well.
Yeah, really well. Yeah, we had a really fun chat, and Angelo got to tell me a story about being on the set of Superman, which was pretty cool. He just happened to be there when they were doing a set tour. And he and Christina Merkler and like Jerry Ordway and Jim Lee, and man, like it was a who's who of like Superman writers that were there as well. So they all got to do this tour of the Daily Planet, Luthor's like control room, and the Fortress of Solitude, which I guess were all like stages next to each other. So you could just go from the Daily Planet to the Fortress of Solitude and jump back. Sounds pretty cool.
I don't see how that's possible because everyone knows Fortress of Solitude is on the North Pole, and it takes a while to get there. But you know,
movie magic. Magic.
Possible. That is possible. Well, did you get a chance to watch the show last week? How bad was it?
I did. No, it was great. It was a good show. Good show.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I have questions about your choice of subject matter, but other than that, it's fine. It's fine. Whatever.
I'm having a time remembering.
I have questions about it too, Brian. Don't worry.
I honestly don't remember week to week, so you'd have to remind me. So that's all right. Well, so this week we did have a big show planned about what we're now calling publishing or distribution aggregators. Specifically services that I think they're going to become crucial in our new landscape, where a single service will take several publishers into a distributor, allowing them access to distribution, especially to the direct market, but also the book market. There's a lot of people who are kind of out in the cold now that Diamond is gone, and DVD is basically defunct. So there's going to be people, and this is something we're doing at Prana, so it's something near and dear to us, and we're going to be able to talk more about what we're doing. I think we're going to be doing that next week. We had, like I said, we did have that plan for this week, but there were a couple pieces we needed to get in place so we could talk about that with a little more confidence and a little more authority.
That's weird. That's not this podcast, man. That's
really
not what we do here.
No, we usually just speculate and hint at rumors we've heard mostly. That's,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, with places like Massive Publishing,
Massive Indies,
sorry, and others that are doing the distribution thing, it's an interesting data challenge as well, because how do we still make the underlying publishers visible in a system where it's like the Massive Indies is the publisher of record, right? So how do we manage to get those guys underneath still visibility? So we're kind of struggling with that on the managed comic side, and it'll be an interesting challenge to figure out going forward.
Jeremy actually brings up something. I love it when, people comment on stuff like this that I know that you and I and people like us are working on in the background. And I wish we could talk about the things we're talking about, where he talks about keeping customers informed, and a printed product like previews. Jeremy, I will tell you, there's a few of us who stay very busy, even though I know that probably just sounds like we just chat on the phone all day. But we are very busy at trying to create tools that will help with that. And there'll be more coming, actually. In fact, when I look over here at my right, I think on the 16th of September, we're supposed to be talking about something really interesting that should help with that. And I think, all things being paved properly, we should see something in October that will be a big program as well. So there's some really interesting stuff coming down the road. I think that many of us, I would say that I think that this chapter in the comics industry is really about, those of us who in the past would be disparaged as middlemen, right? The people who are essentially the connective tissue. And I think that you just at this point, there is the industry itself has become so complex that we need the connective tissue. That people like Brian, people like Django and Jeff, those of us who are trying to create tools to help keep the comics industry going. So,
and ultimately, it will make things more resilient, because instead of having all that power centralized in a couple of hands, you have it federated amongst a bunch of different hands. And if we all work together the way that we have been so far, it's the whole rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing, right? Instead of us worried about our individual fiefdoms, I think you've got a lot more people that are interested in collaborating and working together and supporting each other's strengths, and more importantly, like filling in for each other's weaknesses, which is not something that we saw in the old world, where a couple of players kind of controlled everything, right? So I think overall we will be a more resilient industry, and we'll be more we'll just be a better industry overall. The problem is there's going to be some growing pains, and it's going to take a while. We can't do this stuff overnight. It didn't get built overnight, and it did get turned off relatively overnight. So we're struggling to kind of catch up, but everybody has plans, and we're all sharing our plans with each other, which is really important.
That is very true. I will say that I think it's really fascinating watching people who are building what normally would have been thought of as competitors really working together to try and be that. One of the things that I think you just double tap on what you just said was, for the longest time, the strengths and weaknesses of Diamond Comics were the strengths and weaknesses of the comics industry. If you were a fan of comics, the Diamond wasn't good at something, it was going to affect your experience, right? Even if you never ran a shop or you never published a page, they would still affect your experience of comics. And I think that we're seeing a period now where there's going to be a lot more people with strengths and weaknesses balancing each other out. Except, of course, our friends at Comic Shop Assistant, who are just tools. They're really just that's all they really are. All right, but we are still going through the growing pains, and I will say that there are a couple of big things that happened this week. Kyle, if you can bring up that first story. So round one, we finally got to August 18th, which was going to be a big piece of the calendar. And round one of this fight seems to have come out on the side of the publishers. Essentially, they are the ongoing argument conversation about whether or not the Sparkle Pop ad populum, and it does seem to be them, not necessarily the bankers. It does seem to be ad populum, can sell the product they have on consignment at the warehouse in order to pay off those debts. And those debts that they want to pay off seem to be the ones going to the bank, seem to be ones going to lawyers, not going to the individual people whose money are owed. So their inventory is now going to be, to my mind, stolen from them. in order to pay off other people while they are also owed money. So the fact that the courts are seemingly allowing this conversation to continue and not dismissing it out of turn, I think is actually a really wonderful piece of this. But it is ongoing. There are hearings also today that I'm sure we'll hear about, and maybe we'll talk about here next week. The biggest piece, though, that came out from, I will say, for as far as the infrastructure of comics goes, to my mind, that came out of the hearing yesterday is also on this story, is that our friends Diamond UK were allowed to buy their own company, right? So the way this worked, Diamond UK was never owned by Diamond. It was always an independent company, sort of, but it was being held up inside of this bankruptcy. The people who run Diamond UK were allowed to essentially raise the funds to go ahead and buy the company that they continue to run. And knowing some of these guys, I cannot think of a better crew to run it. They've done an amazing job so far, and I think we'll continue to, now that they have more control. They will be allowed to really compete with some of the distributors that are into their space. I know a lot of I've spoken to a lot of UK retailers, UK and EU retailers, who are defaulting to buying from Lunar, even though they have to pay extra for shipping, right?
Yep.
Because it just doesn't, because availability and speed and, and even often the discount just has not worked out well for them. Now that the crew, Mike Holman and his crew, are able to buy this, hopefully they'll give them more control and be able to create a much stronger European market, which is really what we need. That's a huge portion of sales for American comics. Yep. 10, 15, 20% sometimes. So you don't want to lose that, is what I'm saying. So I'm really glad
for sure
that's sorted out. You're still talking to the Diamond UK guys about the on the data side, right?
Yeah, I haven't talked in a few weeks, but we've got kind of a bit of a workflow going through, and we're working to improve that over time. I think data is probably one of those things that's been a bit of a blind spot for them, and through no fault of their own. It's just, you do what you can do. So I think we're going to continue working with them to get even better data, because we've got a lot of UK customers and a lot that are expressing interest in moving over as well. So I've got a meeting with a Polish comic store tomorrow.
A Polish comic store? Excellent. Yeah. I like it.
Wild. I know, it's great.
All right, excellent. That brings us to the next part of the story, which is our friends at Image Comics did finally get some clarity on their position. This is if you know anything about the behind the scenes of this particular one, it's fascinating, because every other publisher involved, I think, has just kind of been in a wait and see mode. Well before all of this came crashing down, Image said, you know what, we're taking everything, we're pushing it over to Lunar. And there's a really interesting story behind the scenes. I don't know that I feel confident in sharing it myself, but suffice it to say, saying we want all of our inventory moved to the Lunar warehouse. There was one big batch, and then they said, all right, that's it, there's no more. And then suddenly Diamond said, oh wait, nope, there's more. And there was this massive inventory. Well, then later, as part of the bankruptcy, we're finding out there's even more. So my understanding, reading through this and reading through the other coverage on this, is that Image essentially is being given the option to look at the inventory that's there, decide what they want, and then essentially allowing it to be compensated for the stuff that they can't find, which is fascinating to me, that they just can't seem to find all the Image product in that warehouse. There's just apparently impossible to do. Have you ever been to the Olive Branch warehouse, Brian?
I've never, no.
It is. I guess I understand, having been there, how it's easy to lose that much inventory, but we're talking a massive amount of inventory that they just can't seem to put their hands on.
That's wild. And it's especially weird because until fairly recently, Image Comics were on their liquidation lists. So they did have Image Comics on Diamond's liquidation lists and you would find like the odd weird Image, 1 in 50 ratio cover available for liquidation.
I believe that. I also am told that there were times, I think it was Dark Horse. I heard a story once about Dark Horse saying went to go do an audit, something I had to do once working for Valiant, where you went and said, hey, you guys are not screwing up our high-end variants. And they found a case of high-end, I want to say it was Star Wars variants, holding open a door in the office section, not even in the warehouse.
Wild.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah. Okay. So as of right now, you can still buy Feral number 9 on liquidation for $1.26. Giger number 8 for $173. Like, these are available right now on Diamond's liquidation list today. So there are still Diamond products available from Image products available from Diamond Comics distributors today.
Wow.
There's not a lot, but there's still, a half dozen books here that I see right in front of me.
That's incredible. It's incredible, especially considering what they went through. I mean, there were people who were pulled out of retirement to help manage this move, and they still couldn't find it all. People who worked at Diamond came back and said, okay, I'll help you find. Couldn't do it. Like, it's
miraculously still available. I Hate Fairyland 16, 17, 18, and 19 are all available if you'd like them. Yeah, it's shocking.
Well, I hope that money's going. I don't know. Church is going to Ad Populum, but yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. I don't know. Not looking forward to well, no, I am looking forward to hearing about this, but I do wish well all of our publisher friends who are waiting to hear about their inventory or money, because that big of a pop that could put you under. It really could. Like, the amount
and it's still shocking to see how much is being paid to the lawyers and the restructuring people, and like we said last month, like all that money that went for 1 month of restructuring costs could have made whole all of the indies. All of those indies would have been covered by that $525,000.
Just
That's
one
insane. 1 month,
yeah. Companies of this size, they're really. We have a guest coming on, and I'm reminded of when. Excuse me, somebody's car alarm is going off outside. I'm reminded when that guest and I had a bankruptcy that we had to deal with. We're still both actively trying to get money out of that company. So yeah. All right. Speaking of trying to get money, one last story I wanted to talk about: the Cadence art. What do they call the Cadence comic art? This is an art agent, and typically the way these art agents started working over the years has been feel free to jump in, and I'm sure you'll be sending me comments to correct me. But typically the way these guys started off was essentially just being an agent to sell the original art. Like, you take an artist's original art to sell it to a collector, and you have a middleman that you pay a percentage so that you don't have to deal with that collector. And then they started to grow. They started to be these larger companies that would set up big booth areas at conventions and fly everybody in and negotiate with the convention holder. And then in some cases, as a publisher, sometimes you have to deal with these agents just to get that artist to do a cover or to do pages. And I will tell you that this is not the first of these we've seen where the allegations of fraud have popped up over these art agents. And it just, you look at some of these names, Becky Cloonan, David Marquez, like there's some real there's some real incredible artists that are in this lawsuit. They're not even at AMC. But yeah, they do, like, it's amazing. Jill Thompson, Pia Guerrera, Jenny Friesen. These are some of the biggest, Raphael Albuquerque. These are some of the biggest artists that we have working today. And they're getting ripped off by these agents. So this is not an uncommon practice. So how do you find the ones that are honest? I guess the one that hasn't been sued yet. You know?
Yeah. Django and I were at C2E2 last year. So I think it was C2E2 was like March or April of 2024. And this was just kind of hitting its peak at the time, and all these artists had announced that they were no longer being represented. And it was a really weird thing because you would just see like on social media, I am no longer being represented by Cadence Comic Art.
Yeah.
And we talked to a couple of different artists who kind of told some of the stories behind the scenes, like that they were finding out from customers that they had been promised commissions that these artists had never been told about. And there was like, 20, 30 commissions outstanding for people. And the amount of money we're talking is not insignificant these days for an artist commission. So yeah, it's kind of shocking. And definitely something where Cadence were trading on the names of the artists to basically pilfer money, which is insane that it was happening.
Not saying it was Cadence, but I've also heard stories about artists like just chatting, behind the scenes at the bar afterwards, and somebody saying, "How was the show?" "Oh, I'm doing okay. I think I'm going to cover, my travel and everything." And they said, "Well, what about the guarantee that the convention organizers were going to pay? What guarantee?" The guarantee that went to the art agent and they never even heard about. So. Right. Finding an honest art agent, it is the win or lose, right? It is the secret sauce to that kind of a career move.
There's probably a half dozen of them that are like kind of the old school ones, and you'll know because you go to their website and it's still from 1995. It's yes. Like Felix Comic Art. That guy's got to be good because his website hasn't changed in 125 years, and yet he represents a ton of different artists.
Yeah. Comic sketch art. I don't think he's ever had, issues. There have been others, so we shouldn't name names, but yeah, there are definitely some stronger organizations. And I think really the key in all of this, and is something as somebody who is going to be doing some of this work, one of the things I keep in mind and reminding my team is that it's about transparency. Right? It's about, here's what we've gotten for you. Here's the percentage we all agreed that we're going to take. Here's what you get back. Here's when it's coming. That kind of transparency is the make or break on how this kind of stuff goes. And, doesn't hurt that I'm on a live show saying I absolutely will be doing it that way, because then there's a little bit of being held accountable that is going to be.
Yeah, I believe they call it an exhibit in court.
That's right. Exactly. I can't wait. To see the transcript of this. Anyway, so big week in our little comics industry. But we at Prana have been working on a project that wanted to bring in a guest to talk about. This is something we've been working on behind the scenes for a little while. A good friend of ours came to us and said, "Hey, you do some crowdfunding. Can you help us put this together?" And I will say, you've never met a comics legend more legendary than our next guest. That's right. He started off his comics career as an underwear model. Listen, the catalog pages alone are brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But since then, he's actually been one of the first people to truly make anthologies. I mean, one of my first favorite anthologies was his. He's been a legend in publishing as a writer, as someone who puts deals together, has put publishers together. I met him during the publisher we were referring to, where they did incredible work together. I'm not even going to say their name, but I will say this name, Mr. Joe Pruitt. Joe, please join us. How you doing, buddy?
Hello, Adam. Hello, Brian.
Hello.
And no underwear modeling. It was just, I never did underwear.
You never did underwear? I really thought I remembered seeing pictures of you in your underwear. Maybe that was something else.
Yeah, my girlfriend at the time, soon-to-be wife, would not let me do underwear modeling. So that was back in the glory days, and right after college, when I was, like I said, I was a lot prettier than I am today, and a lot younger. And it didn't last very long because I was with one agency, signed with a different one. It was a much bigger one, signed a 5-year exclusive contract. Within 2 months, she wanted me to do some kind of assignment. I turned it down because I was traveling at the time with my girlfriend's now wife. She graduated college, and I said, no, I'll be out of town. I'm sorry, I can't do it. She goes, I don't think you understand. You will be doing this. I said, I don't think you understand. I will not be doing this. I won't be in town. And so my 5-year exclusive contract basically turned into 2 months or 3 months, whatever it was. And I never worked again.
Wow. Wow, man. That's
I came to comics instead. So a much more secure and, financially rewarding, sarcastically, career.
That's yeah. I mean, in an alternate timeline, though, we would have seen the supermodel Joe Pruitt instead of comics legend Joe Pruitt.
You can see a few pictures on my Facebook page, but that's all.
It doesn't take that long to dig. How have you been? You've been working on quite a few things recently. I wanted to get into Paint Live today, but before that, talk through. Just give us the pitch that you give to people when you're trying to say, "Hey, listen, I'm a big deal." Let's hear the big deal pitch.
I never said that.
You got your start. Let's see. It was you and Steve Ditko and Stan Lee. You were inventing comics.
Yeah, that's a good one. My kids tell me I was before the telegraph,
Me too.
But I actually got my start working with Bob Burden as his assistant on the Flaming Carrot comics for Dark Horse right out of college. So I worked on issues 23 through 29. And then working with Bob, I made friends with a lot of his friends. And started writing a couple years later. Then started editing, started Negative Burn, the anthology that you mentioned earlier. That was in 93.
One of the all-time greatest anthologies.
Well, thank you. I played with the idea. I brought it back once when I started Desperado Publishing, when I was partnering with Image back in the day. I'll be honest, I didn't have my heart into it like I did the first series. And so I felt it suffered. So it went 21 issues. The first series went 50. Second issues went 21, but I didn't feel like I put my all into it, so I feel kind of ashamed about that. But I have considered bringing it back at points in time. Maybe I'll bring it to crowdfunding at some point. A prominent company just asked me if I wanted to bring it back through them, but I think it came out to the legal work would be kind of complicated, they said. So we'll see. I mean, anthologies are in my blood. I can't help myself. I did a couple of years ago called Shock, which I really enjoyed doing. I'm very proud of those. I have a lot of great talents in that. But we'll see. I'm focused on a lot of them. Focus on my writing career. Focus on what we're ready to talk about. Doing something else I used to do a lot of very successfully. At this time of my life, I just want to have fun doing what I do with my friends and be happy, and make some money. Hopefully, I do have a family support still.
Yeah.
Look at that. Shock was amazing. It made me cry in a hotel lobby.
Oh, I did.
There you go.
Sticker price.
That's pretty. Caliber Comics in the 90s was like a super powerhouse between things like Dead World they were doing and really like cool kind of interesting stuff that nobody else was doing. What was it like being there during that
Caliber
period?
was my favorite job I've ever had. So I started my first published writing work was at Caliber in a comic called Calibrations #1, which came out in 92.
Yeah.
And then Negative Burn came out in 93, which Negative Burn got started basically because I was waiting for my artist to work on a series called Kilroy is Here, which I did at Caliber. The first artist I had was a total flake. I won't name names. And just would lie to me about pages being shipped to me and they wouldn't show up and blame their mom or blame the post office, whoever. And so I did that while I'm waiting for a new artist to come onto that series. That's when Negative Burn got started. And Negative Burn pretty much launched my career. And Gary Reed, who was a big mentor to me and over time became my best friend before he passed away several years ago. But he gave me, Bob Burden gave me my start in comics and Gary Reed gave me my career. But he let me come in and do whatever I wanted to do. And then when I was doing Caliber, I got offered jobs up at Caliber. Gary also helped start Tom McFarlane's toy company. I got offered office manager for that job when it was opening up. I turned that down. I turned down managing editor job at Caliber because I didn't want to move to Michigan for one thing. No offense to people who live in Michigan. I spent 5 years, my early years there. But then finally around 96, around that time, my wife says we had our first baby in 95. She says, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I felt like I'm missing her grow up. I was Mr. Mom. I stayed at home for that year. And I said, okay, you can do that, but I'm going to take a job I want. So I called Gary up and I said, okay, Gary, I'll take a job now. He said, but one condition. My twin brother, Jim, who I helped get the job there like a year or so early as managing editor, when I turned down, I said, he can't be my boss. So
you got to fire your brother?
Yeah. So me and Jim, we were like code number 2s at Caliber. And we had offices next to each other, next door. So it was fun time. I think we almost got in one fist fight, maybe once at the office, but that's brothers, but that never happened. It's just close. But it was a great time. And Caliber at that time, when I came to Caliber, it was a place where you started your career and moved on.
Yeah.
As all the stars did, and the guy Davis's and, Joe Mabar and everybody else would do it all read. But when I came there, I wanted to make it a place where you've already got your career. You can still have the newbies career, but come here and do your fun stuff, your personal stuff. That's why I went and got, I got, Alan Moore, I got Brian Ballin. Everybody, negative burn friends, I said, who can I get? And I would just ask everybody to do so. I tried to get Will Eisner. He turned me down, but it's fine. I tried. The best one I ever tried to get was John Cougar Mellencamp, because he was a painter. And I found out that my wife's second cousin was in his band when he started off. So because she's from Indiana. So I actually went through my wife's grandmother, who lived in a small town in Indiana near where John Mellencamp lived, who gotten his address from me from the cousin. So I sent him a care package and Edgar Burns said, hey, I would like to use one of your paintings for a cover. He never got back to me, but again, you don't know until you try, right? And I got Mobius, I got David Lloyd. Who else I get, And so with that, I went and that's how I brought Garth Ennis over to Caliber. Paul Jenkins was starting off doing Hellblazer. He came and did stuff for me at Caliber. We already had Brian Bennis and David Mack were already there when I came in, about the same time. So we all were kind of working together. So it was a lot of fun until the distribution wars, which kind of similar to what we're going through right now. But 97, I think, was the main distribution wars. The first bunch where Capital City was number 2 at the time, half our business. Diamond was half our business. There was like 13 different distributors. I remember Friendly Franks and Silver Snell, and I can't remember who else at the time. We had Heroes War before Marvel bought them and started it all. But one by one, all those companies would go out of business the year I was at Caliber. And I moved up in 97. I was there for 1 year. And they all go out of business owing us money. And so at the end of the day, it ended up being, Heroes World with Marvel, Diamond and Capital City. And then Capital City, we found out they went out of business because my brother Jim worked with the distributors. I didn't do that. I worked on the creative side. And he calls up Capital City one day and they answer the phone, Diamond Comics. And he's, oh, I'm sorry, I called the wrong number. He goes, are you trying to call Capital City? Yeah. He goes, oh, wait, we're Diamond Comics now. Wow. So that's how we found out. So it was a different, and then after that, and Diamond, Capital City owed us 6 figures, paid us out, 10 cents on the dollar.
Ugh.
And so that's what Caliber went from. We rose from being a small company to being like the number 8 company in the business, and then nosedive. Yeah. After that, so that's what's happening a lot. I'm seeing, deja vu a little bit here.
Yeah,
so it's not a great time, at least for publishers. And I've heard retailers are doing pretty well, but
I've been hearing that as well. I think every retailer I talk to, and one of the things that gives me hope is that nearly every retailer I talk to is telling me that they're having record-setting years, and we're seeing that.
Great.
Some of the FCR ratings that we're seeing, some of the data we're getting from Managed Comics and from CSA, like we're seeing incredible sales right now, but everybody's struggling with this transition period that's happening on the business side. And hopefully we can all get to the end of this.
Yeah. I keep having publishers coming to well, how do I get into distribution? I said, I don't know what to tell you now. I really don't.
Yeah. It's hard.
This is a major difference too between what happened in the late 90s, early 2000s, and what happening right now is that comics were also hitting a bubble, right? So the bubble burst, and we had that massive, and it didn't just happen to comics. It was comics, cards, like all of your things that supported a comic store also all bubble burst at the same time. Whereas right now we're not seeing that same bursting of a bubble, which is, thank God, because it would be disastrous if it was happening.
Truly, I love this industry, and I want to stay here until I die.
Before we leave it, I want to double tap on the value of what you guys were doing at Caliber and at Negative Burn. Well, I mean, we're talking about 92, 93 in that area. That bubble was happening, but that bubble was so much about like the flashiness of it, right? The big bombastic images that didn't necessarily have stories. You had so many issue ones that came out with no issue twos, right?
The image creation of Image, which took the world by storm. I remember the Chicago Comic-Con Image tent and everything out in the parking lot.
Yeah,
those were crazy days.
But Caliber was doing, if Image was about image, then Caliber was about substance, right? It was really like you guys really did an amazing job of creating really well-crafted stories. And
we found a lot of great new talent that are still prevalent today. I like to take a little pride in that. I used to have a pretty good eye, but now my eyes are all messed up. But I used to have a good eye for talent, and find all these guys who are superstars today, who were Negative Burn, who did some at Caliber or whatever it was. I take a lot of pride in that.
So. The list is unbelievable. Like just thinking things like Maze Agency, which introduced us to
I brought that to Caliber,
and you've got Mike Diodato, who got us start there. Mr. Monster, like it's unbelievable.
And that brought from Eclipse, I believe. Mr. Monster. Yeah. So I was like kind of the talent scout at Caliber before I actually went on staff as creative director. So I would go out and I would go to cons and stuff like that. And if I would read a lot of comics, obviously any indie comic out there I thought was great, I would say, why don't you bring it under Caliber umbrella real quick? So I remember I brought Exit, a series called Exit by Nabil Cannon, a British creator who I really liked his stuff. He came to Caliber. I brought Bud Root's Cave Woman, which was kind of a fun, sexy little book at the time, and brought it over to Caliber. Like I said, Maze Agency was a Kamiko book. Mr. Monster was an Eclipse book, and that stuff I all brought over to Caliber because these are books I liked. So I say, come on, just come on home. Let's make it to a little group here and have fun. So that was fun. That was a lot of fun back then. It was always, like I said, the challenge was who can't I get?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about somebody who was very big during that period, who are now you're getting a chance to celebrate a full career retrospective. We can talk about a campaign that went live today.
Right.
This Book of Jusko. Now, you and I have been having this conversation for weeks now. Is it Jusko or Jusko? Did you ever get it?
It's Jusko. And here's why. I've always said both, and I've confused myself so many years over the years. I don't know which one's right. So I asked Joe just the other day, saying, "Correct me, please. Is it Jusko or Jusko?" And he's like, "Joe, how many years have you known me?" And I go, "I know, but I've confused myself." And so he goes, "It's Jusko." Kids, when I was he goes, "Here's how I remember it now. Kids are cruel. So when I was a kid, people would just say, Joe, just go, just go away." So that's how I remember now. It was funny though, because I got off the phone with him, and within 2 minutes I went, "Which one is it?" I called him back up and I asked Joe, "I have to ask again, how do you pronounce it?" And that's when he gave me that little, memory that he shared with me. So now I can always remember it's Jusko.
Big shout! He just commented. Shout out to Blake, Blake's Buzz, Blake Morgan. He helped us out in building this campaign. He's been vital to this. So let's talk about this. What is this book? Why is it? I mean, one of the I think the biggest things we're going to talk about is the fact that Desperado Books is coming back inside of all of this, right?
That's cool.
So when I left Caliber, when I left Caliber, what I immediately did, I spent a few years writing X-Men titles for Marvel, which I don't know how that happened. I was at Caliber. I was a anti-Marvel and DC snob. If I bought a book Marvel, I'll go to the comic shop and I'll make sure nobody I knew was around to watch me buy it. I was that much of a snob for indie comics at the time. And next thing I know, I'm writing X-Men. And then it brought me back to like, oh, this is like me being a kid again. This is a lot of fun playing with these toys. That lasted for a few years until there was a regime change. It kind of changed everything for me. And so I said, well, what I want to do now is like what I do miss doing is working with my friends, at Caliber and stuff. So, Gary, I had Gary come in, he consulted and mentored me during Desperado. But one thing the big thing at Desperado that actually worked really well was a line of art books. I decided I wanted to do art books. And then for the first one I did was the art of Brian Bolland, which won the Eisner Award, which I was very surprised and happy about. And the first art book I ever did. So I had hired one or two guys to design it for me. I wasn't a designer, right? They both were kind of flaky on me. So next time I know, fine, I'll just do it myself. And I learned how to do it. And so the first one went to Eisner. So of course my ego's 10 times bigger than it is, lesser than it is right now, but still bigger than it was at the time. And I said, okay, this is easy. So I was like, well, who else can I want to do? Again, I reached out to friends, P. Craig Russell, of course, second one I did, nominated for an Eisner Award. I said, piece of cake, and then it's like, oh, I'm doing Timothy Bradstreet. And then Joe Jusko was the fourth one in line, followed by Tony Harris, Dave Dorman, Jim Starlin. I remember this. Jeffrey Jones, George Perez, Amanda Conner. I did 10. Is that 10? And so I got better in my design. I look at the Bolland book, which I'm very proud of, but at the same time, I'm thinking as a designer, flawed.
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of flaws to it. I learned so much more after that point. I'd love to do another Brian one. So Jusko came out and we did it. It did really well. We went to 2 printings and we did a second printing when I partnered with IDW. It also sold out of his print run. The Jim Starlin one, which, hint, hint, may happen against, maybe I might be visited there sometime soon too. We did the edition through IDW Desperado. It sold out completely. It was print run instantly. I did a new edition of it at Aftershock, correcting a couple of typos I found in it, and it sold out instantly. And so I'm thinking, this is something I like doing. I love working with my friends. Like I always said, it's what I want to do, have fun and work with my friends. And so, and plus I've been seeing these crowdfunding art books. I'm thinking, that's what I used to do. How much money are they making? I never made that kind of money. Joe didn't make that kind of money. Craig didn't make that kind of money. Why? We should have done this, 10 years earlier, and hopefully we all have been made, moderate income from that we're going to be happy about. So I'm thinking, I want to be a writer again. That's my first love. That's what I always want to do in comics, and I love doing these art books with my friends. So reached out to Joe. It's funny, actually. I reached out to Joe, and he goes, "I was going to call you. I want to do a new art book." So it was great timing, right? And
well, let's talk about it. Let's take a step back. Let's talk about Joe or Jusko. Jusko. I'm gonna get there. Jusko. Why is he important for in this day and age? Why are we looking at his art?
Well, I think Joe just has a presence about his art. When you look at a piece of his work, you know who it is instantly. It just brings it's a dominant image that just stands out and just resonates to the person looking at it. It's just powerful, and it's got a great fan base. He does. He's worked on, look, the Conan stuff here, and the Red Sonja stuff you can see on our cover. All the iconic characters, the Tarzans, et cetera. But he's also, he's done so much over the years. The first book was 312, 24 pages. I can't remember for sure. I have a second volume right here in my hand. But it has so much material. And the thing about Joe is, I love about Joe, he started working at 17 years old.
Oh,
that's crazy. 17 years old. He was working at Marvel. And he's only like 6 years older than me now. which I'm only 32. No, I'm just kidding. But but he still has produced all these. This is his 6th decade of being published as an artist. Incredible. That's amazing. Is that right? He was late 70s. It's 2025 now, so that's about 6 decades. He's 65, so I just throw that out there. So, and he's unlike a lot of artists, and I'm not, I think he continues to get better. Yeah. There's never been a lull in his quality. So every piece he approaches is with the same intent and the same passion. He has that little 17-year-old breaking at Marvel Comics. So he's never set on his laurels. He's never lived off his reputation. He just has continued to grow and produce at a high level. And that's just amazing to me. So the fact that, hey, we did a book together, we enjoyed it. I'm very proud of it today. Went through a couple of printings, sold out completely. And he's kept producing. I can do another book now. It's only been 17 years since the last book. Yet he's continued to produce all this time. He never stops. So I have another 230-page plus book of mostly new materials out. None of the stuff in this book is in the old book. I didn't repeat anything. So that's what I'm saying. There's so older pieces I might have now that weren't in the original book. That either we now have images or whatever, but nothing's repeated. This is all new material. So that's the kind of person that deserves. And of course, when you go to this con, I was amazed. I saw my Heroes Con last year in Charlotte. His line was down the hall. So he's got this fan base that just loves him, and he deserves another edition like this.
Well, I will say
his career. Yeah.
When we were talking about his career, one of the things that in the copy of this campaign we talked about in the early 90s, there was this huge movement towards fantasy artists cards, like trading cards.
I have a lot of those.
yeah, I'm sure. And the Marvel Masterworks was one of those things that is just they still hold up. We've heard from several people. One guy I remember recently said to me, we all have an experience where we get really high and go on eBay and buy all the Marvel Masterworks. I'm like, it might be you. But yeah, it's still culturally incredibly relevant, right? It's still very much so. He was a part of that complete cultural shift. Part of the reason why we put cards really early into this campaign instead of just the art book is as a tip of the hat to that. So
yeah, exactly. It's a big tip of the hat because a lot of his fan base, a portion of his fan base, came just from those cards.
Truly.
Today, yeah.
And a lot of people who came into comic shops for the first time really came through those cards, right? And became lifelong fans. So I think that this, once again, I appreciate all of your patience with the infomercial. We're really proud of this campaign, and we want to make sure that Joe got all the eyeballs he could get.
Well, and I mean, one thing that you've mentioned that's not really been touched too deeply is the whole desperado of it all. So right there is the Tony Harris, and right next to my finger is the George Perez. Those are amazing, gorgeous books. So if this is kind of part of that lineage, that should be trumpeted to high heaven because those were beautiful books.
It definitely is. It's just a continuation of what we had before. Same high quality, same production values.
Working with the same printer, working with the same.
Yeah, actually, for the majority of the original series, it's the same printer. I think I started working with this printer around the IDW one. So I've been the 5th one. That would have been, I guess, Tony. Tony was part of the first one I did at IDW with IDW.
Yeah, those are really nice books too.
So, and I've been using that same printer ever since. And he does great work.
He does a beautiful work. I've got some samples from him right here on my desk, in fact. So
okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, I just love this image, this cover image. It's just thank you for Nick Marucci over at Dynamite for letting us use it for the cover. It's just a phenomenal piece. I think, as Joe said, his wife's favorite piece is this piece.
We have a long-standing tradition. Anytime Nick Barucci's name is mentioned on this podcast or this show, we have to say, if you have not hit like and subscribe and the alert button, Nicky will be along to chastise you. So do yourself a favor and just hit the like, subscribe, and reward buttons. It's not that hard. Okay. Are we good, Nicky? Okay, good.
So one of the reward tiers I see here is a retailer tier. So you get 2 copies for $75. So that's definitely something retailers should look into.
Yeah, I studied other Kickstarter campaign stuff where the retail tiers would be as high as 5 to 10 copies. I said, honestly, no retailer, even with retailers who support projects like this, when I did them at Despero, which I partner sometimes, I did sometimes with Image. I always noticed what a retailer would maybe buy 2 to start, sell 1 buy 1, sell 1 buy 1. Yeah. But they're not going to invest for 10.
Yep.
But let's just make it easy for the retailer. If we want this book in your stores. I know a lot of retailers are resistant to support Kickstarters, but let's just make it easy for you. I'm not asking you to throw a lot of money this way. This is about as much money you throw into it if you're buying it straight from Lunar or from Diamond in the good old days, or wherever you might want to buy it now. 2 copies, half price.
There you go. Easy. Yeah, and 100%. When we've talked a lot about how do you make Kickstarter. I just remembered. Thank you, Brian. Our last conversation was about how crowdfunding and the direct market can work together, and you really have to keep that in mind. Is what is going to work for the retailer more than just.
I've always been a retail supporter. In my days after, you can't find a retailer who wouldn't agree with me there. I toured I toured 5 months across the country. I did 80 store visits. After I started up trying to spread the word. When we had COVID, I created an anthology called SOS, Support Our Shops, which I gave to retailers for free. I went and got prominent creators to tell us the story of either the first experience in the comic shop or why they love comics and comic shops. And it was all personal stories. And I sent 5 to every retailer. Said, do what you want to with it. It's free of charge. Upcharge and give it away. It's your choice. This is us supporting you. And so retailers, you always have my support. And hopefully you give me your support as well on this and no other stuff as well. But I'm not doing crowdfunding to cut out the retailer. I'm doing crowdfunding just because that's the best avenue for a product like this today.
Big retailer and big supporter of the show, Jeremy Shore, says you're always extremely supportive of the retailers and how much it's appreciated.
Yeah, I love Jeremy over in Dallas. I'd love to come do another signing with you, Jeremy.
I'll let you guys work that out. Jeremy, buy enough copies of this, buddy. I'm pretty sure we can get Joe down there to sign them. Maybe both Joes. Who knows, depending on how many.
Yeah, I'd be happy to drive. There's only like a 14-hour drive for me, and I'm a road warrior.
Yes, you are.
Yep.
Yes, you are. Awesome. Anything else we want to talk about with this campaign before we move on?
Well, it started today. It runs for 30 days. We have a very modest goal for it. We hope it'll go higher than that, but no. It's going to be a great product. It's high quality, my guarantee. I'm doing slipcases for the first time. I love slipcases. I love putting these books on my bookshelf. So whatever I'm producing for the fans, I'm producing for me first because I'm a collector. So I'm not going to do anything, cheap, and I'm not going to cut corners. It's going to be high quality all the time.
Listen, as somebody who's been trying to help you figure out how to make a profit at this, he's true. It's very accurate. He will not cut corners, as annoying as that is occasionally for me, who really is just trying to help him make some money off of this. I can say that is absolutely true. Yeah. Wonderful, Joe. Well, thank you for coming on the show. And I will also say, as somebody who is helping Joe put this together, along with our friend Blake and Megan, who are also in the chat, we would love to have Joe on your show. We'd love to have you. You got 30 days to promote this incredible work, and love to have you anywhere. If you guys have a platform, we'd love to have Joe come on and talk about this book because it's really near and dear to our hearts.
Yeah, and maybe I can bring the other Joe with me.
Yeah, there you go.
I tried to grab him 15 minutes for this call, short notice, obviously, and he was in Costco, and I just told him he's such a domesticated little house that
I just moved to the suburbs, and somebody called me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm in a Costco," and they laughed. And I said, "Yeah, I walked in, and immediately I was wearing cargo shorts and New Balance shoes. I didn't know how this happened. I didn't even know. I think I owned those things. Yeah, incredible. Yeah."
And you walk out, and it's $250, and you're not sure what you just bought.
my kids and my wife, they love Costco. I've never been.
It's a whole vibe, man. It's a whole vibe. Awesome. Well, thank you, buddy. I really do appreciate it. Before we leave, do you have any art agents you recommend?
No. Do it yourself.
No.
That sounds about right. Thank you, bud. Really
thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, we got about 5 minutes left. Anybody else who has any other questions, wants to jump in, we could probably squeeze something in. But otherwise, looking forward to next week's show. I'm telling you, it's gonna be a barn burner, I think. So
yeah, that was super cool. I had no idea that he put together the Desperado books. Like, I love those books. I've got a bunch of them. Like, those are just the 2 that I have out, but I know I've got a bunch more in my secret stash on the other side. So
I believe that. We talked a lot about the fact that most of the people who are going to back this are people who look like you and me, who came up during that period.
Yeah.
But also, I think there's just a whole generation of people that are going to see this work and go, "Oh, yeah, this is what it looked like. This is what it looked like when you had to put a brush to canvas."
Yeah,
for
sure.
This kind of image, right?
I reached out to a couple of my buddies while we were chatting there and said, "Hey, check this thing out." And I see that you went up by a couple backers, so maybe it was them.
Well, we did actually boost sales a little bit here, and I will say these are for people who absolutely deserve to be supported. It is the reason that we put as much work into this as we have been. So if you would, even if you are not in a position to support this campaign, you're sharing the campaign is just as appreciated, especially as Brian did. So yeah, 100%, man.
Do we want to talk a little bit about some of our upcoming shows? Because we've kind of nailed down a little bit of what we're going to do. Is there any of those we want to chat about?
I think we can. I think in the upcoming shows, we're going to be talking about what the fuck is happening with Free Comic Book Day. Can I say fuck? We're not in the first 30 seconds.
Yeah, we're after 8 minutes. We're allowed.
Outside of 8 minutes, you can say up to 3 without getting demonetized.
Oh, right on. All right. Well, I think I've already said it twice.
We'll call it flip. What the flip? What
the flip is happening with Free Comic Book Day? That is going to be coming up. We're going to be doubling down on some of the sales information that we have, and we're going to be discussing some really interesting granular stuff, and really showing kind of showing our homework. And when we say that sales are going up and that the stores are doing really, really well. We're going to we're talking to some buddies about people who are lighting, shall we say, on upcoming launches.
I think we can say it, because I was actually talking to Philip on Friday, and he's all in. So we may have to do an interview with Jeremy pre-recorded, because he may be on the road. But we'll definitely have either Philip or Jamie S. Rich live during that show. So that's pretty exciting.
You're talking about Ignition Press? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, retailer friends, if you're not already, you need to really, really look into Ignition. I sold it to my own Earth 519 customers a couple weeks ago by saying, imagine if you could get on the ground floor of Oni or IDW or Boom. Like, that's literally what this is. And we saw a pretty big lift just from that little pitch there. So I'm hoping this stuff deserves to get seen, because it looks really, really nice.
Absolutely. And really incredible people behind this doing incredible work. I think we're at some point we're going to be talking about how you save comics, right?
But we're not going to talk about anything about that. But by September 16th, I will have formally launched my pitch to save comics, the entire industry,
the whole industry, all
by my lonesome, just one man. My team doesn't even have anything to do with this. They're just sitting there hoping I'll save the industry.
And that's not even counting in the stuff that we're going to do just before New York Comic Con. So, but all through August and September, we have some really amazing shows planned. We're doing our best to try and get a little further ahead in planning both the podcast, the guests that we have, and we've got some really cool panels coming up and some really amazing guests that we have lined up, but also this show. The goal, once again, is just to give you the tools that you need to run your business or career in comics, and we want to be able to share a lot of the information that we get on a regular basis. So if you have any requests, always feel free to jump into any of the comments, even if they are later, if they've already been posted, or drop us a line, info@pranadm.com. We'll get to my team, and I see everything there. Yes, I know, Kyle.
That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to kind of map things out a month in advance, at least, so
exactly.
that we're going to plan for things as well.
Awesome. Well, there you go. We filled another hour, and we're talking comics. So once again, thank you guys for joining. And if you are at all supportive of this, the experience, and if you're all supportive of Nick Barucci and or Dynamite, you will know that your job right now is to like, subscribe, and hit the alert button. My name is Adam Freeman. I work at pranadm.com, and we are working behind the scenes to help comic book publishers. My buddy Brian Garside here at Manage Comics. ManageComics.com, is that right?
Yeah, ManageComics.com.
There you go. They're there to help you, your business, your comic shop do better than it did last year. Frankly, I think that's just it. How are you going to get better? Start with good tools. All right.
Absolutely.
We'll see you all next Tuesday. See you next Tuesday. How did I only just come up with that?
No, that's inappropriate. Namaste, y'all.
Namaste, y'all.